Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Vybrational Stage Podcast. This is the place where we step out onto the stage of life together, where questions are not something to avoid, but something to explore. Because the questions we are brave enough to ask often become the doorways that transform us. And today's episode is a particularly meaningful one for me, because the audiobook Life What's the Point has now officially been released into the world. For many months, that question has been living quietly inside my mind, my heart, and my microphone. Now it has begun its journey outward, and that's where today's conversation begins. Not with the question itself, but with what happens after we ask it. And to explore that with me today, I've invited back someone who many of you have already met on this podcast. Someone who represents the thoughtful voice of curiosity, the voice that lives inside many of us. Michael, welcome back to the stage. Michael says, "Thank you, Paul. And I have to say, this feels like a really meaningful moment. Because I remember when you first started talking about the question, life, what's the point? And now the audiobook is out in the world. People are listening. People are thinking about it. And honestly, I think a lot of people are probably asking the same question I'm asking you right now, which is this. Now that the question has been asked, what happens next?" I respond, "That's a beautiful question, Michael, because most people think that the goal of asking a big question like this is to arrive at an answer. But what I've discovered during the creation of this audiobook is something very different. The real power of the question is not the answer. The power of the question is what it awakens inside of us. When we ask, what's the point of life, we begin noticing something remarkable. We begin paying attention to our lives differently. We begin observing our choices. We begin questioning our assumptions. And slowly, almost quietly, something begins shifting. The question becomes less about solving life and more about experiencing it." Michael responds, "So what you're saying is, the point of asking the question isn't necessarily to solve the mystery of life, it's to wake up inside of it." I respond, "Exactly. Because if we look honestly at the way people move through life, something interesting becomes apparent. Many people are busy. Many people are productive. Many people are successful. But they are not always awake to their lives. They are moving through routines, responding to expectations, checking off boxes, and sometimes they reach a moment where something inside of them whispers, 'Wait a second. What am I actually doing here? What's the point of all of this?' That moment, that quiet, unsettling, curious moment, is actually a beautiful moment, because it means something inside of you is beginning to wake up." To which Michael responds, "That makes sense. But I imagine some people might hear that question and feel a little uncomfortable, because it can feel like the ground beneath your feet is shifting. If you start questioning everything, doesn't that create uncertainty?" To which I respond, "It absolutely does. And here's the fascinating part. Uncertainty is often where real life begins. When we stop assuming we already know everything, we become curious. And curiosity is one of the most powerful forces in human consciousness. Curiosity opens doors. Curiosity invites exploration. Curiosity allows us to see life not as a rigid structure, but as a living experience. And the moment curiosity enters the room, fear begins to loosen its grip." To which Michael responds, "So the question, what's the point, isn't actually meant to collapse meaning. It's meant to expand it. To which I say, exactly. It's not nihilism. It's not hopelessness. It's actually liberation. Because once we release the idea that there must be one singular cosmic answer waiting for us somewhere, we realize something incredible. The point of life may not be something we discover at the end. It may be something we participate in every day. The point might be to experience, to grow, to love, to create, to explore, to connect. Life may not be a puzzle we solve, it may be a stage we step into. To which Michael responds, which is interesting because that ties directly into the name of the podcast, The Vibrational Stage. To which I respond, exactly. Because each of us is living a life that is unfolding moment by moment. And we are not just observers, we are participants. We are actors, creators, explorers in our own story. But here's the deeper realization. The stage is not just external. The stage is also internal. Our thoughts, our beliefs, our fears, our dreams. All of these are playing out inside of us. And the moment we become aware of that, we step into the very different way of living. We become conscious participants in our own lives. To which Michael responds, so if someone listening right now is asking the question, what's the point of life? What would you say to them? To which I respond, I would say this. The fact that you're asking the question is already part of the answer. Because the question itself is a sign that something inside of you is alive, curious, awake, exploring. And that curiosity is not something to suppress. It's something to follow. Because every person who has ever lived a meaningful life has done something very simple. They paid attention to the quiet voice inside them that said, there must be more. And they followed that voice. Sometimes that path leads to creativity. Sometimes it leads to service. Sometimes it leads to love. Sometimes it leads to transformation. But almost always, it leads to a deeper experience of being alive. And so today's episode is not meant to close the question. It's meant to open the doorway even wider. The audiobook Life, What's the Point? Has now entered the world. And with it, the question has begun traveling through thousands of minds and hearts. But the real journey, the real exploration, begins inside each of us. So if you find yourself asking that question, don't rush to silence it. Sit with it. Explore it. Live inside of it. Because sometimes the most powerful realization we can have is this. The point of life may not be something waiting at the end of the story. The point may be the experience of living it. Thank you for joining us today on the Vibrational Stage Podcast. And Michael, thank you for stepping onto this stage with me again.